Greetings, fellow Ghibli fans! Tiki here.
And Blue Dragon 5.
There are few names in the field of animation that inspire awe and admiration like animation master Hayao Miyazaki. To properly pay tribute to the man's illustrious career, we're embarking on a 3-year-long journey through his films, seeking enlightenment along the way. May you find it with us, this May-azaki. Yeah. All right, folks. Welcome back to May-azaki. Dragon, I've got the text in red. I'm assuming that's okay because the logo's in red.
Well, for this one, it should be red, so that's fine.
Okay. Little Blue says, this movie actually proves a pig can fly. Yeah. All right. Kogiel says it's hard to imagine that there's a Studio Ghibli film that stars the voice of Michael Keaton. Indeed. We'll get into it. All right, so folks, we are Dragon. Did you lay out what the 3 chapters were in the first one?
I think so, but I believe I explained like how we're gonna do like the whole 3-year journey thing. So I believe I kind of.
So just to lay it out for y'all, essentially,
I didn't say what exactly is going to be in each one.
No, I'm not going to say what exactly, but essentially we have the first year is going to basically be the Mount Rushmore of Miyazaki movies. It's going to be all the big ones. Porco Rosso isn't exactly Mount Rushmore, but it's very much a personal favorite of Dragon.
It's our Mount Rushmore.
Exactly. So that's why it's up here in the first year. The second year, we're going to take the 2 films that are primarily about childhood and the 2 films that are primarily about castles that may or may not be floating or in the sky or otherwise. And then the third year, we're going to do his first 2 films and his last 2 films, beginnings and endings. Pretty straightforward. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a hell of a journey. All right, so Dragon, Porco Rosso. Dragon, believe it or not, this is the movie that got me into Miyazaki in general. Up until this point, I had seen a couple Miyazaki movies. I think the only ones I had seen are Spirited Away and Ponyo. I really liked both of them, but I didn't exactly love either of them. Nowadays, I kind of feel like I love Ponyo. Spirited Away, I feel, you guys will do Spirited Away. It's a good movie. I just feel like it's a little too overhyped for what it is. I mean, no, it's great. It's great. I'm not crazy about the story in that one. And with Spirited Away, I really think it's more of a cultural thing. But yeah, so Dragon, I actually, I don't think I ever told you this, but the person that actually got me into going through the entire Miyazaki filmography is actually Mars Girl, an old Channel Awesome contributor, because she did a series reviewing every Miyazaki movie.
Even dressed up like a Miyazaki character.
Yes, very appropriately. And I gotta say, her description of Porco Rosso is what really got me into it, because when she was talking about Porco Rosso, she was also going into how planes and flying machines and flight and all that was like a big motif of his filmography. I hadn't really realized that until that point. And honestly, once I had that connective tissue to latch onto with him, I was kind of off to the races as far as like discovering his movies. So this is very much the gateway drug for me. It wasn't the first one that I saw, but it was very much the one that actively got me into it and got me passionate about it. And by all intents and purposes, I truly think that Porco Rosso is like, it's not the most ambitious Miyazaki movie. It's not the biggest scale Miyazaki movie. But I think out of everything that he's done, this is probably the biggest vibe movie of Miyazaki's career. This movie it's got such a unique tone to it, even compared to all the other Miyazaki movies. I truly feel like it stands alone. And then obviously the American voice cast is great. I gotta tell you, Dragon, when I rewatched this, I did rewatch it with the Japanese dub. And yeah, I feel like with Miyazaki movies, it's kind of like one of the rare exceptions where I think the American dubs are generally better I feel like Ponyo is an exception just because Ponyo has a couple cast members that really stick out. But generally speaking, these American dubs are fantastic. This one included. All right, so I'll throw it to you, Dragon. What say you about this?
So yeah, this was I mentioned this when we did Kiki. Kiki was like the first it was like the bat crashing through the glass of the Miyazaki films. That was I remember like seeing the advertisements for Kiki on the Dragon Ball VHS tapes.
Oh yeah.
So that was my basic introduction.
Literally spoiled the climax, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yeah, no, that was yeah. But yeah, so that was my first kind of that was the first like introduction. What the heck is this? There was an interest. Like I have no way of watching this. I wonder what the heck that movie was. Was it a show? Was it a movie? I had no idea. So anyway, so the first full on my first full on Miyazaki film though, Porco Rosso. I guess technically Miyazaki and Ghibli, but point being, for our purposes here, the first one, and still, God help me to my favorite. Still, I think at the end of the day, Porco Rosso. It's the first. It's also kind of like the personal favorite. I love this film, man. I remember what really turned me on to it. I don't know if it was like this thing from Turner Classic Movies or not, but it was like this one. I can't remember the exact circumstance. I saw a bit of the clip. Like it was me. I think it might have been Miyazaki talking about it. It might have been like a clip from an animation documentary. It might have been something, but it was like this brief clip of the big ammunition scene. Where Porco's going through. He's preparing the ammunition for the big duel, and then we get the origin for what happened to him. So but not even like getting the full that full scene, but just the beginning, just the quietness of the night preparing. That always to me was a striking image that really spoke to. I think in the grand scheme of things, it's so weird, but it just I think there's a lot of Miyazaki in that moment. Just right before.
Totally. I feel like there's a lot of moments that are like that, where I honestly feel like this movie is almost kind of like a movie full of like the Spirited Away train sequence type of vibes, Yeah.
But that's the thing. It was just that striking image of this pig-like pilot.
Mm-hmm.
It was just so. It was just an inspiring image that just kind of drew you in. You wanted to know more about it. It was like there was like an intrigue there. This is unlike any of the other animated things I've ever seen before. It's kind of a quiet moment. It's sort of like a contemplative moment, and it's not a lot going on. You don't need dialogue in that moment. There's a lot conveyed there, and it really impressed me. It always stuck with me when I heard that. When I connected, okay, that was Ghibli, the Ghibli, that was Miyazaki, that was his doing there. So this is Miyazaki's love letter to planes. It's I love the cast on it. Keaton for the dub. Did great. The movie's not perfect, but it is a classic. It is simple. You will believe a pig can fly. Quote a earlier commenter. They're absolutely right.
All right. Yeah. No, and you know what else I really like about the dub is that it's, obviously you got people like Michael Keaton, Cary Elwes, but beyond those two, it's like just straight up like voice acting veterans in this cast, which I feel like is really cool, and it really does kind of elevate it. Importantly, also, one last note for me on why I really like the movie, and then we'll kind of get into it, is I think the setting just goes such a long way towards making this really stand out in the Ghibli filmography. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's like it's so visually distinct. That Mediterranean vibe, I love it. All right. So, Dragon, are we? Is this going to be like? I wasn't on for the first one, so you have to remind me. Are we going to do like background and then just kind of like just cover it freeform? I assume that's how we're going to do it.
It wounds me you didn't even watch it, but I'm going to tell you. Yeah. So
I did just get back from Vegas, Dragon. I'm sorry.
Still doesn't change the fact you didn't care, but okay. Anyway, let me tell you about the background. Then we're gonna just have free flow conversation. So, okay. Background. So Ghibli was riding high after Kiki, very appropriately given it's a movie about flight. He's got to hang up that Miyazaki. I can just imagine Miyazaki as a kid. This is not accurate at all. I can imagine Miyazaki as a kid. Just like Charlie Brown and the kite eating tree. I just imagine the struggle of like I'm gonna get this kite in the air one day.
I wonder how Miyazaki feels about the Planes movies.
It's a good question. I don't think he cares for him.
I would think not.
I just imagine Miyazaki just.
I imagine it's like a guilty pleasure for him. I imagine he secretly watches them, and people be like, "Hey, out! What are you watching? This is like below you, man." He's like, "I know, but they fly, man. They fly."
I'll tell you. Now, let me give you the realistic version of Miyazaki watching these Planes movies. Okay. He's gonna like, oh, planes. I put in for curiosity's sake because I do like planes. I like animation. I do that. This is the dubbed version, Miyazaki, mind you. Anyway,
Yeah.
No. So he's gonna put in there, but no, the realistic version of Miyazaki, even just silently, he's gonna like be shrugging his head like, no. It's like
yeah.
Just like they get either in the subtitles or in the dub. So it's like, this is all wrong. No, they wouldn't do that at all. What's wrong? Like, that's Miyazaki watching Planes. Anyway,
that sounds about right. Now
you're probably wondering, these two knuckleheads they're getting all swept in Planes. The movie hasn't even started yet. But you're wrong, dear viewer. I'll tell you why. The whole movie gets made because the Japanese airlines wanted Miyazaki to adapt his manga about basically a battalion of flying pigs into a 40-minute short.
Mm.
So, basically light adventure, but that's essentially what it was, kind of a throwback to the adventure serials, but, pigs as pilots, cutesy kind of thing. And ended up becoming a very personal film for Miyazaki. See, everything changed when, the Yugoslavian ethnic war broke out. So this happened, and also, Japan had involvement in the Gulf War, and these were two events that really stuck out to Miyazaki because on one hand, he'd done so many films. I was looking at Kiki and everything, and he'd done so many films. The man is enamored with Europe in the settings of things. When he's building the cityscapes, there's a lot of European influence and kind of mixture between Japan, but a lot of times when he's going outside of Japan, Europe factors in there. So all that. So
that's true. I just feel like this is the only one where it's like specifically like very, very much telegraphs that this takes place in the Mediterranean Sea. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like there's visual inspiration from Europe in other movies, but this, for my knowledge, is the only one where we're like explicitly there.
Well, no, I'm saying in general, like going to Kiki and stuff. Like he likes, it means a great deal to him from just kind of like in a global context. So it's the fact that war was breaking out, and then of course just Japan's involvement in kind of another kind of war effort is very much disappointed him. He had many times over the years growing up, he had arguments with his mother, basically a very kind of like a philosophical argument about mankind. Like he had, as a youth, he had optimism in mankind that we're just going to basically almost embrace the beauty of the plane and not use it for war. And his mother was very much like, there's a hopelessness for humanity. They're never going to learn. It's going to be war after war. So that was the age-old debate, basically this whole Japan's involvement in the Gulf War thing. That very much kind of set him down that path, and it was very much a lot was on his mind. And the big thing is that Miyazaki, the big reason Porco Rosso has stood the test of time, been something really special, is that this whole movie with our main character is in parallel to Hayao Miyazaki, in that he was having a midlife crisis. This is the midlife crisis movie for Miyazaki.
It feels like it. It definitely feels like it.
That's the thing. So he was dealing, and Kiki kind of had themes about this as well. He was dealing with some burnout post Kiki. Like there's a lot of times he's thinking about, as you can kind of tell, Miyazaki contemplates retirement a lot.
Right.
Even back then, it's like, this is enough success. We don't.
I'm pretty sure Mononoke was the first time where he was like, this might be my last film.
But no, that's the thing, Tig. It was like it's so funny. Miyazaki is very much a Larry David. He's an Larry David to many degrees, because Larry David every time worked on Seinfeld, after every season, he's like, I'm not coming back for more. But he came back for 7 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just in that regard, it's like even after Kiki, is like, man, I'm a little burnt out. I don't know. Maybe this is enough success. Kiki was like their first big commercial success. Everything else is just like people liked it, but there's like,
yeah,
man, we're doing really good here. So he had a lot on his mind, and that shifted the tone from kind of this optimistic kind of like adventure serial throwback to basically Casablanca, which is really big in Japan. By the way, the Japanese loved Casablanca.
That's funny.
Yeah, so I basically put a moratorium on like let's put a hold on doing the coming of age Ghibli stories for a bit here. Let's do middle age. You know, and like, remember, like the marketing, well, there was like the whole marketing gimmick for Porco Rosso is like, this is what cool is. Just everyone like just getting everyone really like, look at this, what the heck is this? It's just this cool looking pig in a trench coat.
Do you know if there's any like sort of cultural significance to the pig as symbolism?
Well, I was gonna save it for the
Okay.
conversation, but do you want to talk about it now?
No, we don't have to. If you want to see, if you think it'd
Yeah,
be
let's
better.
get.
All right.
Anyway, so yeah, so this this came out was the when it came out, it was the most successful Ghibli movie in '93. At the time it came out, it was like the most successful they had done. Period. Like
It
this
was
thing,
even more successful than Kiki.
yeah, way more successful than Kiki. Yeah, like, Porco Rosso
That's
was like,
actually really surprising because I feel like nowadays Kiki is like much more like I like that. I mean, I don't know. I feel like between this and Kiki, I feel like I'd probably put Kiki a little bit of a notch above this, but like they're pretty close. But I feel like Kiki is much more iconic.
well, I just mean like in terms of like it was like a surprise success for the folks at Ghibli. It was like they did
Uh-huh.
not expect, like, this one was like, okay, this is one we already know is probably going to lose a bit of the kid audience, but people loved it.
I mean,
You
it
know,
did have Michael Keaton on it, like fresh off of Batman, so that
well,
must
yeah,
have.
but remember that was like a dub years later though with Keaton though, so that was like, this is not for a while, but
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry about that. I need to. I'm not really, as you know, Dragon. We've oftentimes had a little bit of confusion over the the chronological nature of the dubs. So I'm sorry about that. You're right.
well, regardless though, some fun fact about that though, this was Keaton's first voice acting gig.
Yeah.
Which, if you listen, you can kind of tell he's a little green at it. Like it's a little new to him, and you can kind of see it. Because I think he does a really good performance. I think he's very well cast in the role. However, I will say this: I feel had he been doing voice acting for a little longer, he might have been a little more. I think he would have been able to put more into, because this is not just an ordinary voice acting gig. This is not where, like, like the movie's already done. So it's a dub, so he's really got to link up to. There's not a lot of room to improvise or wiggle around there.
Right.
So that's I think that's kind of like it's him getting used to that. So it's not exactly the first project you want to give someone for voice acting, but I think he did, all that considered. I think he did a pretty good job.
Mm-hmm.
All right, yeah, let's just get into it.
Okie dokie. Let's see. Really quick, Kogia says retroactively, Porco Rosso looks like a foreshadowing to The Wind Rises because it's a higher Miyazaki film that's focused on flying, also focused on existentialism in a way.
Well, like
Blue, much like you and Kogias haven't seen this movie, I have not seen either of the Planes movies, so I really can't comment on how god awful or not god awful those movies might be. I'm sure they're not god awful. I'm sure they're just mid, honestly. Anyways, okay.
All right.
So yeah, so Dragon, I think one of the big strengths of this movie is kind of in what you were saying, where I love how it starts out in just the straight up like serial mode. I love the fucking pirates. That opening scene with the pirates just being like big old teddy bears to those schoolgirls that they're kidnapping.
Yeah,
Dragon, it's just priceless. It's fucking awesome.
So the opening of this movie, it sums up the movie. Here's the thing, honestly. Again, I don't mean to keep digging in on these certain shots, but I think that's kind of the charm of the movie. Like the movie's very first.
No, even as I was rewatching it, there's a lot of like individual moments that are really striking. I very much agree with you.
Like,
there.
think about this. Just opening of the movie, okay? It sums up the movie in total. It's like there's this beautiful scenery. You have some culture, because we have like the beautiful little like cove, like hideaway location where Porco kind of camps out at. Looks beautiful. It's scenic. You hear like some great music playing.
I want that cove as like a location in a Miyazaki theme park, man. I want to go there.
That's the thing. I mean, well, there is like a Ghibli theme park, so there might be.
Yeah, it's not really. It's weird. It's more of like a hybrid like art installation. It's not really a theme park, but it looks cool. Don't get me wrong. It's just they don't really have proper like attractions there.
Well, either way, this quiet little cove. He has like covering his face is an old Hollywood magazine, which again definitely kind of foreshadows the Casablanca vibe and also Curtis and everything. And we build to the reveal of the pig. We learn about the man before we see that he's a pig. He's a bounty hunter. He's haggling. Because he's a bounty hunter, and we have the voice of Keaton, and we kind of know everything we need to know about the. He's a man of honor who's now a directionless pig.
Yep.
Like chasing the thrill of his old life, without the ethical conundrum of like war. It's just like I get to fly by plane and shoot things, and it's fine.
I mean, that's the thing about the movie is that, like, really, I feel like that first act is very much like you got the great, like, kind of like action and comedy with the pirates.
Yeah.
But then we get into the vibes, and I really think that this is like the ultimate Miyazaki hangout movie. But at the same time, with this being a Miyazaki movie, the character work on Porco, and even like someone like Gina, who doesn't really have a lot of screen time, but she's got a lot of emotional depth to her. There's just a lot of substance to these characters, even if it's a very light movie otherwise.
Absolutely. It's again, there is a lot of depth there with Porco, and it's very much kind of a signature of Miyazaki, where he's not gonna spoon feed you the whole time. He's gonna just like put it on screen and let you kind of figure it out, which is basically
Miyazaki's whole MO is just basically like he presents a world, he presents some characters, but there's not really going to be a traditional story structure.
So you weren't here for it. I really wanted you to hear this, and I watched this recently. I watched one of the Miyazaki documentaries. I watched them both, but I think it's the Never Ending Man documentary. And he had this great line in regards to Kiki, which I brought up, because about the very ending of Kiki, everyone after it came out, because it was so popular, asked him like, "Hey, why doesn't the cat talk at the end?" And Miyazaki's response is, "Well, what do you have to say?" It's like, what did you want him to say? Like, what was he gonna say? Yeah, it's almost like the Grandpa Joe thing.
Hey, you did it, Kiki.
It almost would have been like the original planned ending for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Grandpa Joe goes yippee. That was originally going to be the ending.
Oh, dude, that would have been such a terrible ending. Thank God
that's
that didn't happen.
Before they had that wonderful Gene Wilder line, it was going to be like, yippee, Charlie, you get the factory. Yippee, that's what it was going to be.
I mean, that last line from Wonka is like fucking poetry.
Exactly. It's flawless. That's when you have something to say.
Yeah,
don't just give the cat a line just to go. Why doesn't the cat talk? Well, they didn't have anything.
Hey, Kiki, I'm Troy McClure.
Okay. Anyway, so the Mama Yudo gang, again, but you're right. So this is very much what the original pitch was. Just at the opening here, essentially Act 1, just, Miyazaki loves air pirates, as we've learned many a time.
Yes, it's kind of one of his things.
They're a lot of fun, very Ravager-esque, if you want to use a Guardians parallel, very Ravager-esque. Brad Garrett, again, one of the best castings in the dub here, is playing the Bluto-looking leader of the Mama Yudo gang.
I love that design. It is very Bluto-esque, yeah.
It's like if Bluto tried, he could look like the leader of the Mama Yudo. But Bluto got in a little bit of shape there. If he was trying to be a little less menacing, he could beat this guy.
Right.
But yeah,
I always really loved the design of Bluto, just in general.
Well, it's a great design. Yeah. This guy's the svelte Bluto. Anyway, so I love that. You're right. They're not bad guys. Like they kidnapped 15 schoolgirls as hostages.
Dude, the stuff with them interacting with the schoolgirls is legitimately some of my favorite stuff in the movie.
It's adorable.
And it might be some of my favorite comedy in all of Miyazaki's filmography. Honestly.
Like the two little girls by the gunner,
You missed Hey, I'm not supposed to let you up here. Get down.
Sweet one, I say. All right.
Oh, all right.
So again, Act 1 is action mainly. The action of Act 1 is to establish. Porco, great pilot. He's a fabulous pilot. He's really good at what he does. This is going to have the bounty hunter thing works. We set up the Mama Yudo gang. He's going to have a score. He's going to have a score to settle with them. And importantly, we establish the honor code, which we know our leader of the Mama Yudo gang knows. for Act 3 when he's doing the expo during the fight.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
We see Porco could have easily killed these guys and they're surrendering. He's honoring that. And I love at the end, my favorite details that Porco says, I don't want to put you out of business because that's bad business for him if he can't like stop these guys again. But also it's like, I'm not going to like, look, I'll even let you keep some of the gold to fix your plane.
Mm-hmm.
Classy move. So again, the bounty hunter thing is a great way to have dog fighting without a war, which again is very important to what Miyazaki.
But the war is very much in the background, which I think is a really smart move narratively.
Yeah, it is the looming presence. It's on the horizon. Maybe not. Again, to paraphrase Casablanca, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but it's on its way.
Oh, God.
It's a happy medium. For everyone. It's a happy medium for things. And we had this really great line too. That feels like Miyazaki getting in the pointed. Is pointing there. The whole. If you make money from war, you're scum. Like that's Miyazaki's Spielberg
pretty dry, yeah.
That's the daddy issues right there from Miyazaki. That's the Spielberg daddy issues right there.
I wonder if Miyazaki was watching The Last Jedi and got to the fucking Kanto fight scene and was like, well, the rest of this movie is pretty silly, but I can agree with this message.
Well, yeah, I think there's lessons where Miyazaki's watching that. He's going like, yeah. Just like
I agree with the silly Hispanic man.
Just the nod of like, yeah, that's how it works. Yeah. That's it in space. That's it.
Remember when I thought Benicio del Toro was going to be Boba Fett?
Briefly, yes.
Oh, that was fucking ridiculous. That was a ridiculous theory. Anyways.
Anywho. So, so again, the aeronautics at play here and everything. So it's a happy way of kind of getting to that. But again, we hit kind of we then shift the tone in a really great, interesting way here. We get into like kind of the history and lore of the hotel at Adriano.
Now, I mean, the Cove would be cool, but this is seriously like, because basically what the Ghibli Park is essentially a series of locations from Ghibli, and there's no actual rides, but it's essentially a series of photo ops and stuff. And this bar would absolutely fit in like a glove into this Miyazaki park.
I meant to mention this during the background, but I'll bring it up now. Yeah, so one of the tragedies of Porco Rosso, most undermarketed Miyazaki product or Miyazaki film.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's why I was so surprised to learn that it was like such a big success.
Well, when it came out, that's what I'm saying. Like when it first came out, basically it came out in like 92, and like by 93, it was still like the big movie. It was doing great.
But it just really fell under the radar as time went on. Essentially,
yeah. I mean, basically everyone will go, if you ever go to like a box lunch or something, like one of those stores or a Hot Topic or what,
right?
You're gonna find that you'll see Totoro up the yin yang.
Of course.
You'll see Totoro up the yin yang, probably some Ponyo,
probably some Spirited Away, probably some probably some Kiki. Maybe.
Here's the fun fact about the Kiki. This frustrates me to no end because I've been tempted to get some Kiki stuff. I've been tempted. Okay. I saw like this really you see like a nice cardigan or something or some socks. And here's the girl is missing. It's just the cityscape. The girl on the broom is not there. The whole cityscape is like, why would I just want the cityscape?
That is ridiculous. Yeah,
it's Kate. The girl is delivering. Where is she? So essentially, you're right. The top two sellers for Miyazaki, it's Totoro and Spirited Away. Those two will always sell out.
Probably Mononoke would probably be third.
You're right. Mononoke is third. That's what I'm saying. But Porco Rosso, I have like a shirt with Porco Rosso on. That's about it. That's all you'll find.
Dude, I would fucking kill for a Porco Rosso shirt, though. I want that shirt. God damn it.
Yep.
Watch your back, Dragon.
Really, I have the shirt. I want the button-up shirt. I will
literally murder you for that shirt.
Yep. That's healthy. Okay.
Obviously, I'm kidding.
Point being, so the hotel Adriano here. So this thing very much feels like the Casablanca. It radiates a Casablanca atmosphere, which is great. We have like
absolutely.
It's an old-timey kind of bar. It's been around. You feel like the history there. Everyone it's like Switzerland. Everyone comes there. No one's going to kill each other there. We have Gina, of course, voiced by the wonderful Susan Egan in the dub, and beautifully singing some French.
Yep.
Anyway, also interesting. So, Gina's been married 3 times. How do you feel about that?
I really, again, I kind of alluded to it, but I really, really appreciate that Gina is a character with such a rich history and such a rich like interpersonal dynamic,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't really. She's in maybe like 4 scenes, right? Like maybe 4 scenes.
It's about right, yeah.
She's got like the bar scene. She's got the scene where she's talking to Porco. She's got the scene where she's talking to Curtis, and then she's in the finale. Like that's really about it. But we learn so much about this person, and she's such a fleshed out character in like the brief screen time that she gets, and it always impresses me when I watch this movie just how much. So yeah, like the three husbands thing. Like I love how complicated the relationship is with Porco. Like because all we really get are context clues. Like it seems based on that flashback that her and Porco Marco might have been like childhood sweethearts, but then she fell in love with, Porco's best friend, and then they got married, but then the best friend died, and it's like a whole complicated like thing, Dragon, and I love that.
We don't spell it out.
Yeah, I love how messy it is, though. It's very much like, adult relationships at work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love that little, little flashback, little like cute little first flight with them. It's really nice, and it does it shows you that he's she was the one. Even if there were other suitors or other husbands, like he was always the one. But something for reasons we're not privy to.
I love the idea that he stands by her as a close friend, even through the husbands. I feel like that's a really admirable character trait of him.
Yeah, he's looked out. He's looked out for. He's looked out for the bar and everything. So the restaurant. So he's I love that he has like this little table in the upstairs, like and everything. It's just there's very lived in,
Totally.
And they have this. We get an inkling to Porco's philosophy for the film, which is the good guys always die, which basically hits on a big thing, which is a very personal thing.
I love that line because it comes pretty close to the end of the first act, and I feel like that line right there is kind of like the transitioning point where we go from this film being like a silly little adventure serial to something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so that's where we really hit on a huge reason this is a personal movie for Miyazaki, is that Miyazaki, he's always had a little bit of survivor's guilt. Well, it's more of a, yes, well, I you could define it as a type of survivor's guilt.
You get to see Heron, right?
I have not seen Heron, no.
Yeah, Heron is going to get really into the survivor's guilt thing.
So that's the thing.
That's a huge element of Heron.
That's the thing, is based on what we know about Miyazaki, he very much feels guilt over the war profiteering of his father, or at least as he's defined, the war profiteering of his father, and very much like, he felt very lucky. Well, there was considerably a lot of luck compared to the people around them, so there's always been a lot of guilt towards Miyazaki. So a lot of that is manifesting itself in kind of Porco's worldview here. Or Porco is a character who's defined by survivor's guilt for a horrific scene we see later, a horrific yet beautiful scene we see later on. So his philosophy about the good guys always die, it just imparts that he thinks he's not a good person, which is why he survived. Which again, many people are going to argue here. Again, he's is why he's manifested himself into
well, I mean, I know a thing or two about inner self-loathing, so I totally get it.
Yeah, so the idea of if it could be self-actualized, that is why he's a pig.
Okay, so yeah, you want to talk a little bit more about that symbolism? Like, is there sort of a cultural significance to it, or is it just more like him manifesting it?
Well, it's funny. Okay, so here's the thing: a lot of people, you can imagine everyone, their mother's asking like, "Hey, hi-yo, why you pig?"
Yes, they're going up to him on the streets, calling him by his first name in English.
Don't I'm like the one dumb American in the room here. Okay, we would both. Come on. I'm just trying to add a little folksy whimsy here. Okay, don't point being. Many people asked Miyazaki, why the pig? You know, why a pig? So Miyazaki, he's given a couple of reasons, but he's very offhandedly saying, well, pigs are easy to draw, they're funny. Again, the manga had like kind of like the pig design for like the pilots, but again, he caricatures himself and he caricatures people as as pigs, and there's two reasons for that. Well, I mean, beyond just what he said, that's what he said. He doesn't like to overanalyze the movies. Miyazaki's never a guy who likes to overanalyze a lot of stuff. Like when it comes to like like the stuff that's kind of like artistic liberties or like stuff for people like an audience. Again, it's just him putting it out there in the audience to interpret. Pigs are kind of an allegory for people. For years that's always been the case because in science, like you usually see people using like pigs and frogs for like. That's why some people have made the leap, and I don't know how seriously you want to take it. I've always liked the little fun observation, like in science class, you use frogs and use pigs to replicate things in humans. So that's why there's dissected frogs and there's like fetal pigs and all sorts of stuff like that. And one could argue that's why we have the relationship between a frog and a pig with Miss Pig and Kermit the Frog. One could make the argument that we have kind of our connective, kind of like a scientific connection to humans, I guess, like a fill in there. And that's a leap, mind you. I'm just saying it's like a cutesy observation. I'm taking that example and saying you could always look at what's more human than a pig, in terms of like, pigs kind of have like a lot of physiological kind of similarities.
Okay.
And again, the obvious ones being
there's no cultural. It's not like a Japanese cultural thing. That's all I really need to know.
I mean, it's not intentional, but people have made those observational points. Like Miyazaki didn't intend that to be the case, but there is some. So I'm not trying to drone on here. It's just that yes, pigs are kind of seen as like kind of like the middle age thing, but he has denied that. So
gotcha.
The cultural
obviously in America we have that strong association with pigs and cops, which obviously is not at all what he was going for here. But
like pigs and chauvinist pigs and kind of womanizers.
Right,
It's not that like Miyazaki said that's not the intention, but the culture, yes. So it's kind of complicated. The culture, yes. Not Miyazaki, not specifically.
Okay.
That's just what he said on the matter, anyway.
I mean, culturally, at the very least, even if he's not going for something that's like distinctly like Japanese, he's very much going against the Americanized idea of what a pig is.
Yeah, like later on, though, you go Spirit Away, he's definitely going for the traditional symbol of the pig being greedy and kind of like a greedy, selfish kind of thing that represents kind of an allegory for man in that regard. That's intentional.
I mean, even going further than that, you have like the boar monster at the beginning of Princess Mononoke.
So that's the thing. Again, you see, I hope I didn't lose you with the whole Muppet kind of.
No, you're good. You're good.
But you see what I mean, though. It's like there's a human quality to the pig, and we've kind of had this in the culture and in science and stuff. So it's not out of nowhere that we have that. So I think of all the reasons, that's deep down, I would say that's why a pig, because a pig is kind of like it's man. It's also Miyazaki doing something kind of supernatural, but in a very naturalistic way. It's a curse.
That's the thing. That's another thing about the movie is that like the pig thing, and then obviously like the one flashback, the heaven thing. Mm-hmm. Those are like, and that could very much just be interpreted as like an artistic like representation of what he was going through.
That's actually based on a real war things. People have had those like the out of body experience stuff. That's based on like actual testimonies.
We'll get into that. That's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. We'll get into it. But,
of course.
Yeah, but by and large, the pig thing is really the one and only actual supernatural element of this movie. Which, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this is the most grand. Well, maybe not. No, The Wind Rises is obviously the most grounded Miyazaki movie, but this is among them.
Well, yes, that's the thing. I mean, honestly, between Kiki and Porco Rosso, that's my brand of Miyazaki.
Even Kiki, it's like you've got the whole element of the witch flying around and the talking cat, and that's very much baked into the DNA of the movie. Whereas this, it's just a guy who happens to have a pig face.
So that's the thing. I love grounded Miyazaki, so I think deep down that's a reason. I love Porco Rosso. So Porco Rosso is just that perfect thing where it's so grounded. We do have just a touch of the supernatural. It's like Kiki, I feel, is like the perfect introductory point to Miyazaki because it's supernatural enough, but it's not going to throw you into the deep end. It's just enough.
I also feel like Kiki has one of the more straightforward, like it doesn't exactly have a 3-act structure
Yeah,
to it, but it's got a pretty defined character arc.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're not.
Unlike something like Totoro, which is a little bit more like freeform and abstract.
Yeah, so that's the thing, dude. Yeah, like Kiki is again, it's a nice, simple. Just it's the appetizer before you get into the full course Miyazaki.
Mm-hmm.
You know. Anyway, let's see. So, should we talk about Curtis?
Yeah, very much so. I love this character. I think he really shines.
Yes. So, he's the hotshot kind of Texan Joe Hollywood guy. I think there are a lot
Very
of
much
parallels.
reminds me of gives me some real Varric vibes.
Oh, for sure. I mean, also with with Varric, and honestly,
It
I
actually
always
wouldn't surprise me if Varric was inspired by him to a certain degree.
no, I'm sure he probably was though.
Uh-huh,
Yeah.
uh-huh.
Well, actually, no. Varric was mainly Howard Hughes, but yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah, but
probably a
this guy
little
is
bit.
probably inspired a little bit by Howard Hughes, though. That's the thing.
Well, here's where I think he's based upon. I get a real Doug Fairbanks vibe from this guy because the idea he was a movie star and Doug Fairbanks, was very much he was he was not I don't want to say a stunt guy, but he was a swashbuckler. He was the fencer and everything. He playing Zorro and everything. So
Mm-hmm.
so Fairbanks was very much he was a man about town. He was very very popularized, and people would have followed him doing God knows what. So I think he's kind of a takeoff of what Doug Fairbanks could have. Basically, what if Doug Fairbanks wanted to be Reagan? That's essentially what Curtis is.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's the thing, because Curtis, literally wants to be president, which at the time was kind of a Reagan-esque kind of thing. Go from the actor to the White House, and then years later. Anyway, so the point being, yeah. So he's this. I love that he's Porco's opposite in every way, but he's a good pilot. It's the one commonality that they have. He's somehow this yokel is a really good pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And but again, he's complete opposite to kind of our our humble, just kind of like nose of the grindstone, kind of Porker here. Anyway, so he's proposing to every girl he meets, which I wonder. Here's what I wonder. I want to get your take. Do you think that's Miyazaki's commentary on Disney animation? Do you think just a little bit he proposed that?
I didn't think about that, but yeah, that's a good point. It might be.
This is like around 92 though, so
I'm more Reddit is him kind of like making fun of like how romanticized American culture is just in general.
That's probably the better read on it.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, so this guy's clearly delusional, and he shoots a.
You know what the one element of Curtis is that is unfortunately kind of problematic?
It's the fact that he's proposing to a 17.
Yeah, he's trying to court a 17-year-old girl.
Okay, now two things.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to disagree with you, but there are two things to bear in mind here. Okay. One, it's kind of a thing in a lot of the Miyazaki movies. They have especially oddly with the pirates in another movie, which we'll get to. But
the 17-year-old thing, I fully believe it's a cultural thing, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a cultural thing where it's like in certain states, I'm not going to say it's like the full-on Old West thing. Where in the Old West, you could be like a 10-year-old girl, which is the weird as all get out, and it's sick and wrong.
That is just fucking disgusting.
The point being, that's like it's not exactly an Old West thing, but it's like a thing where in certain states, I think like I'm thinking back to like Series and Fortune Adventures, was like they went to like the whole laws of engagement thing with that in the first book, where it was like age 14, certain states like it was permitted. So I think it's like maybe a takeoff on that, where in certain cultures, like I guess you can make the leap that 17 may have been more of an appropriate, at least an acceptable age. I don't know. Again, it's a cultural thing. I don't think that's the main thing you got to bear in mind. It's a cultural thing, which oddly seeps its way into a few of the Miyazaki films. They don't really go as far as like literal proposal with it as they do here, but
Yeah, it's just like it is very much a cultural thing. I don't hold it against the movie. It's just a little bit frustrating because other than that one, from a modern day context, very creepy element, Curtis is a pretty likable guy in spite of being a sleazebag.
To be fair, though, again, everyone's acting like that's a wrong idea anyway. Like, no, we don't want Curtis to end up with
That's
the
true. That's
17-year-old
true.
girl.
Yeah.
And it's not like a malicious thing, like, oh my god, he's so evil. It's just like, no, we don't want him to end up with this jerk.
It's almost like he's so naive that he doesn't realize it's problematic. You know what I mean?
That's the thing. He doesn't even stop to ask how old she is.
Exactly. Yeah.
And to be fair, we are saying all over the place too. Like, see my granddaughter? Don't even think about it.
Right.
And Porco all throughout the movie, he's like he's not going for it either. So that's important too. Like,
Okay, and let's talk about Theo, because I do think that Theo is one of the big grounding elements of this movie, and she's a great protagonist, kind of an audience surrogate character, if you will. And I really love the dynamic that she has with Porco, where it's like, she clearly has a little crush on him, and he clearly just wants to be a father figure to her and nothing more than that. And I love that push and pull. And yeah. I feel like that isn't problematic at all, because she's the one that, and it is realistic that teenage girls are going to get attracted to, to older men. And that is a dynamic that does happen. But yeah, the Curtis thing just kind of takes it a little too far with the proposal.
Now, is it an older man thing, or does she simply like pigs? I think that's the real question.
Right.
To quote Cosgrove, that's one mighty cute pig. But yeah, the other point I was going to bring up too is like it's also kind of the Disney princess thing to some degree, where it's like 17, but
mm-hmm.
That's how they were being sold. It was it's not saying it's right, but at least it's not Snow White.
Right.
It's a thing where it's like, well, come on, we're not playing Jasmine like she's 17. We all know we're not playing her like she's 17.
Oh my god! Oh, Jasmine was the worst example of that. Yeah,
right. That's what I'm saying. It's like, yes, I understand, like when we do that, but they wanted to be teenager for like to sell the toys to the teenage to the young girls and the teenage girls. But by the same token, it's like, come on, we're not playing her like that though. If you want to have an older,
I kind of feel like she should have just been in college.
Yeah.
That being said, I feel like college, like I could be totally wrong about this, but I feel like college isn't as big of a deal in Japan as it is in America.
I don't think that's right, Tiki, but I don't.
Well, I'm saying they definitely have a system in place, but I'm saying like essentially from my understanding, and I could be totally wrong about this, but from my understanding, what the period of time where Americans are in high school, that's essentially like the high pressure college time for Japanese students.
I don't know. I always thought there's a lot of importance placed on universities and stuff, but I could be wrong.
I could be wrong as well. I very much could be wrong.
I don't know. No idea.
Dragon, I fucking feel so bad for blanking on the name, but there is that oh god, what is the name of that movie? I really fucking loved the movie too.
Give me something.
It's the Ghibli movie where it's directed by the guy who only directed the one movie. It's the Cat Returns was the spinoff.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Whisper of the Heart.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so Whisper of the Heart. The interesting thing about that and why I'm kind of like making the leap that like maybe college isn't the end all be all is that like that the big thing about that movie, the one element that I would change is I would make them high schoolers instead of middle schoolers, because like I feel like that would just like sell the whole like like the love affair a lot more, because when you're in middle school it's like you don't know what fucking love is in middle school. Come on now. But like the pushback I have heard about that argument is that in Japan the transition from like a middle school to a high school is a lot more significant. Anyways, I'm kind of trailing off topic here.
Well, okay, the point being with Theo. Theo is a great character. I love Kimberly William Paisley. I've always loved her, so I'm delighted. I was delighted the first time I watched. Like, oh my god, it's her! It's the Hallmark girl. There she is. But yeah, so she helps Marco she helps Porco find his way back to Marco ultimately. She kind of helps him kind of reconnect to his humanity, because he kind of takes a liking to this girl. She's very plucky.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so in terms of what gets us to Fio, by the way, so Curtis, shoots fleeing pilot, not really an honorable move there with a bad engine, and he ends up going to Milan to get everything fixed up. So Act Two is pretty much like we're going deeper into the heart of Italy with Milan. And we go to Piccolo's. No, not that Piccolo. Other Piccolo. Piccolo SBA. Yes, and that's where we meet the granddaughter and everything. And Fio's got spunk, and I love the idea that Piccolo Senior here. He's not that Piccolo Senior. This Piccolo the grandfather. Piccolo is he's price gouging him, and he's we kind of show him like the ingenuity of the Italian woman, where we have like the fleet of like all the female Italian family members.
That is very accurate to an Italian family, by the way. Very accurate.
Great. I love it. So like, that's where we get into kind of the pig component too, where again he's kind of undervaluing the women when in reality it's like like they're real, they're it's kind of Porco kind of he's learning as he goes here.
Sure.
So he comes to trust and respect Fio, and he's very so again Milan is a lot of where Porco presumably he has plane built in the first place. I love the lore on the plane that he basically had this plane that everyone else was too afraid to use because no one else could fly it because it would lead to disaster. So he's the only one who can fly this awesome red plane.
It's essentially like the same premise as like the Millennium Falcon, where it's like on paper it's a hunk of junk that's been through so much shit, but it's like super reliable to the pilot.
And I kind of forgot about this in the rewatch. Like, they don't just build them a new plane from scratch. No, it's like literally they refurbish the plane and like upgrade, and they add the new engine. They add the Ghibli engine.
I love that. Yeah,
it's great. And I love that the Ghibli engine literally takes the roof off the place.
Right.
That's great. There's an ad for Studio Ghibli right there. If I've ever seen one, they'll blow the roof off this joint. So all that's great. I love kind of hanging out in Milan. That's great. We have the big Casablanca scene with Ferrari, who's very much a nod to Cat and Louie from Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Claude Rains' character, who I love. I'm shocked. There's gambling going on in this establishment. You're winning, sir. Thank you. Down with the voice. Anyway, so we have like how great was that scene in the movie theater with the cartoon?
Oh, I love that cartoon. The symbolism of it, just the animation of it. I mean, it's like the animation of it is like it's practically Cuphead before Cuphead, right? It's
and
just
essentially
like that kind of style.
Essentially, that movie. That's what the pitch was for the Japanese airlines. They wanted that.
Right.
That's the thing. They wanted what that's why that scene's in there to show them, look, this is what they wanted. So that we're going to do something a little more interesting here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I love we have the big famous line, I'd rather be a pig than a fascist.
Mm-hmm.
Which that's really interesting to me, the fact that there's a warrant out for his arrest because he refused to fight in the war, to join the Air Force, but they'll take him back in a heartbeat if he would just fly for him. Like, that's really interesting. They'll make sure he gets arrested. They would take his plane away.
I like that dynamic. I do feel like that dynamic. It's a really interesting premise. I do feel like it's the one element of the plot that's a little bit half baked for me.
Well, half baked how?
Well, just because it only comes up a couple times, it's not really like a major point of tension, except in a couple. Like you got the escape scene, and then you got like the Calvaries coming at the end, and that's really, I don't know. It just kind of feels like almost a little bit tacked on as far as the conflict goes.
I don't know. We set up that while he's in Milan, he is in danger, so it's a big risk what he's doing here. I don't know. I think there was tension in Act 2. I don't know.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe. Okay, anyways, of course, Fio. Again, it's also the main reason we have it in there is we need a reason for Fio to go with them, to go back with them, which is that she has to go back with them because it's a tense situation. He says, "Oh yeah, I'm going as your hostage." It's just such a regular kind of seaplane sort of thing here with like, oh yeah, just every time we take hostages with us. It's like 15 schoolgirls. Kimberly Paisley Williams just gonna throw her in there. The animation on the canal escape. It's amazing, isn't it?
I would wager to say it's probably the best animated sequence in the whole film. Yeah.
Oh, it's so good. I love
just the dynamic camera. I really think that Miyazaki, one of the really big strengths of him, just in general, is his dynamic camera moves, and it's really shown off well here.
My favorite detail, the gadget nut in me that just like loves Miyazaki for every time he does these little things. I love the fact that when he had like the pull, like the the lever, he had to crank the end of it. It's like a little tiny
Totally,
crank
totally.
to like adjust like the wingspan or basically get the plane back on its axis. Like, oh my god, yes, I love those. I love the tactile little gadgety things.
Mhm.
I live for that and anything wrist mounted. That's what I live for. Anyway, so we go back to the cove, and you think, oh man, this is gonna be really nice. We go back to the cove, get some like pour some wine. It'll be nice, just like the opening of the movie. And like ambush to the cove. Cove is no more. Ambush.
Right, right. Good way to kind of
Fia
disrupt the status quo there.
like, no, it was a nice peaceful cove. No. So Theo ends up saving Porco's bacon in the literal sense. Saves his bacon from being sliced up by the Mama Udo gang. And how wonderful is this? Like she charms the heck out of these pirates.
Well, again, these pirates are just they're so fucking charming for how non-threatening they are.
Oh yeah. I just love the fact that she talked about how seaplane pilots, they're very honorable. Like the masters of both sea and air, and they all love the girl. They all like, oh man, she's. We will not destroy the plane that you've made, but we do want to collect our pound of flesh from the pig.
Right,
We hate the pig's stinking guts.
right.
It's like, no, you morons, no, he's got to get a rematch with Curtison. You can't all gang up on him. What's wrong with you? And they're like, they all feel sheepish, like, oh, what were we thinking?
Exactly.
Anyway, so Curtis just the emerges right on cue. So and this is where we get. So here's the thing: I will say so many glowing things about Porco Rosso, and I love this movie. The one chink in the armor with this movie is that inevitably our third act does run out of gas with the we have good aeronautics going on there, but it's this whole thing of like the bet's a fun idea, like rematch with Curtis. He randomly wants to marry Theo, and
Yeah.
then if he loses, then Porco's debts get paid. Like okay, but it's just the fact that we have this out of left field marriage proposal after Gina turns him down, and then it ends up being a fist fight. The fist fights where things is like it's not even the fact that it's a fist fight. The fact that the fist fight goes on for so long.
It goes on way too long. I will agree with you there.
And the movie is so ridiculously well paced otherwise. Like that's
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like the only flaw I have with this movie. It's just like we have this fist fight. It could be funny if it was just like it's a quick knuckle down drag out fight. And
But no, it's like it goes on for a while. It goes on probably about as long as the actual dogfight does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. It's a movie about flying. It's called Crimson Pig. It shouldn't be a bleeding pig. Crimson for the plane.
Oh God.
Anyway, so that's my main issue with. That's the really only issue I have with the movie. More on that in a second, but
I think that it's really not that big of an issue though, because it's one of those things where it might go on like a few minutes too long, but it's still the character animation still pretty entertaining, and I really like how bruised up they both get during the fight.
Yeah, maybe a little too bruised up ultimately, but I mean, it's realistic. I'll give him that. But it's also the fact that he's all bruised up, and then presumably we may have fixed his face, but we don't know. So it's like he's just gonna look all bruised up, but like it's gonna be zero difference.
Yeah, that's another thing is that like with the ending, I love the idea of having having his face get restored in a very ambiguous kind of way. And you don't really know if it happened or not. I love all that on paper. I love it. I just feel like the actual pace of how it goes down is a little bit awkward.
Yeah, it's yeah, I like the way we framed it, but you're right. We do cram it in like the last seconds of the movie.
Right. I just because it's a big moment, and I love the idea of it, like thematically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we have literally like no time to breathe on it.
Yeah, like it's an achievement,
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of which, let's talk about the sequence of the film here. Okay, so the ammunition and the backstory scene. So, again, like I said at the top, stirring atmosphere and visual. We even have that moment where Theo she kind of comes to while she's in the sleeping bag, and for a moment, we see the man's face. For a moment, Big scene, big little quiet, intimate. It's a quiet, intimate scene. Answers the big question in the movie. No one's really been asking like crazy, which is impressive. Why a pig? Which leads to our answer being this ethereal, beautiful flashback of Marco's Survivor Guild origin.
Yeah.
So
and
yeah,
man, if this is based on like real life experiences, like that must be just such a fucking trippy thing to go through.
Well, just like real life experiences.
I mean, obviously, it's not like actually like happening, but like yeah, it's like kind of like your mind's manifestation of it.
Yeah. But yeah, so he fought to the last man, all the planes, including his best buddy Berlini, who married the love of his life, but he respects it. Berlini, just this, it's just this astounding out of body, kind of like all these war torn kind of plane parts and everything into almost like this ring, this Saturn ring kind of effect, like this little line in the sky, this little constellation of pilots. It's very ethereal, very beautiful, and very haunting. Emphasis on the haunting.
Right.
And it sums up Miyazaki's feelings on war and planes. Beautiful thing, beautiful marvels of machinery. It's man and man being able to fly, combined with the only other way man is going to be able to fly, meeting his maker at the hands of war. And again, it's the dichotomy of Miyazaki. It's the fact that the man loves planes, but the best planes have guns, and the reason the best planes have guns, war.
Exactly.
That's the thing. He loves them, but the funding and the funding and usage for the planes comes at great personal cost.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you had this too. How doesn't that scene, does it give you the vibe of that movie Always that Spielberg did?
Oh, a little bit, yeah. Come to think of it,
especially with the whole like out of body kind of plane experience,
sure.
Where he's kind of flying above the clouds. That's what I'm saying. It's a pilot phenomena that we even kind of saw a little bit in Always. It's like this is a thing that pilots have had, where you're above the clouds, you feel kind of close to the heavens, and people may have, like in times of duress, may have imagined like the ethereal kind of the effect there.
Have you ever been on an airplane where it goes into like a thick patch of clouds and then goes like above that thick patch of clouds?
Long ago, but yes.
Oh, it's an amazing experience, honestly. It literally feels like you're in heaven.
Yep. You're there, you're in the opening credits of Back to the Future 2.
Right.
But, yes. Also, so we have the haunting question at the end of this, which is like, the whole, she says, well, God told you it wasn't your time. He says, well, maybe, but also maybe it was, the whole pig curse.
Mm.
Maybe that was, basically, what if that's the afterlife? What if that's hell? Like to look like a pig? What if?
Right.
Again, this whole thing of only the good men die. All of his friends he viewed as good. Like, why am I? It's the whole survivor's guild. Why am I still around? Like they got their reward. I'm still around here, and I feel miserable. So he's potentially self-actualizing all this onto himself. Again, we don't need to know what caused the curse, and I like that.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All right.
So the third act duel, the only thing I really need to bring up about it, I love that it's very regatta-esque. I love that I have all these boats and we call it out that, people should probably know better. This is going to be like a gunfight. We probably shouldn't have all these boats here. And they regret it later.
Exactly.
And again, it's the fact that it's not war. We're having this for sport, but we do have the looming threat of war on its way that's going to clear out the place. The Air Force is on their way, but I like that it's like there's like a ticking clock at play here. That's my favorite aspect of this duel here, right? This is like they got to squeeze this in before the screws get put on all the pilots, and basically like all the pirates are then contracted for the war, which is why Porco is going to be out of the job. It's like the last ditch effort he has.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all that going on. We have this wonderful dog fighting going on, and we have like the really great moment with the Mama Yudo gang, with the Brad Garrett character, who says like, he won't kill a pilot.
Yeah, I love how that character goes from like a very light antagonist in the beginning, but still technically speaking an antagonist.
I mean, they were shooting at each other. He was
right. To like he's essentially like the voice of reason in the climax, and I think that's a really funny shift.
Yeah, I mean I like that he's running the whole thing with joy. It's like it's like we're gonna bet this this young woman's maidenhood, against all this money. So, with these two guys fighting for honor, essentially. But yeah, I love that he basically in that moment, the way you could read it is that he understands. Okay, that's what this guy's about. I hated his guts because he always kind of he foiled us, but there's something kind of honorable about this pig. He won't gun down a pilot in cold blood. He won't just he'll shoot. He's waiting to shoot the engines. There's strategy there. He's not just because he had so many opportunities to kill Curtis if he wanted to, but he didn't. Because what's the point? He's bloodshed. Why do it? Anyway, so Gina warns everyone to escape before the Air Force comes, and of course Ferrari helping us at every turn there, very Claude Rains-esque. I love it. Now here's something at the end there, after our knuckle down drag out fight, and then we have like the Dragon Ball World Martial Arts Tournament count. Whoever gets up first wins. It's always like, look, if you want to get there, but don't drag it out. But again,
exactly.
I want to be very clear. I know I'm harping up because that's the only thing I can harp on with this movie. Just one gripe. Anyway, Theo kisses the pig. I wish we didn't do it twice because we do the kiss twice. She kisses him at the end of the story and like a nice good.
And so it's like you think it might be like a frog princess kind of thing. Yeah.
What she brings up, so I wish we only did it that one time, and the second time I wish Gina kissed him. I really think Gina should have kissed him.
Oh, I feel that. Yeah.
That to me is
that being said, I do like that we keep it a little bit ambiguous if Porco and Gina actually get together or not.
You're right.
I assume that they do, but I like that there's a little bit of ambiguity there.
Did you ever catch the little clue?
No.
Oh yeah, this is great. Okay, so at the very end of the movie, and we see like the old man, Mama Udo gang and everything. So time has passed, and everything is, Fio's now she inherited, the plane business. She's flying over, and as she's flying over the hotel, you'll notice because again we made a big point of it. The only red plane in the whole movie is his plane. There was a red plane right up. It's really tiny. You got a freeze frame, but you see that red plane is in the usual spot. So
nice.
He did come back, So it's implied that at the very least he came back, and instead of just flying off and never coming back, which is what Theo was implying might have been the case. So if he's back, that implies happy ending.
Sure.
Unlike that cartoon, the pig got the girl.
Right. Oh, God.
Yep. So I like to think too. Like it sounds like the ending of Shape of Water right now. I like to think. I like to think she didn't bleed out in the water. I like to think that she.
I know, right?
Yes. But so I like to think that it was a happy ending for Porco. But let me ask this: do you think he regained human form if that did happen?
You know what? Honestly, the way that I've always read the pig thing is that it's always been like purely symbolic. I don't really think it matters all that much either way. I know that's kind of a cop-out answer, but that's kind of how I read it.
Well, I think either way, I think it's self-actualized. So I think him being in a healthier place, like he's not gonna. I think the pig thing went away at the end of the movie.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, in terms of how that happens, don't ask me. I don't know. If it was like a Lucifer thing where he self-actualized the look. I don't know.
Is it fair to say it's a we don't care?
Well, absolutely, it's a we don't care. We don't care. It's a movie.
Okay, well, I think that's about it, right?
Fun fact before we go.
Sure.
I think it's appropriate to save it to the end. There was actually talk of a Porco Rosso sequel.
Now, he's not done any sequels. I mean, the only one I can think of with Ghibli in general is The Cat Returns.
Well, yeah, but
any others?
Not Miyazaki. Well,
yeah.
I don't believe
I don't think so.
That's what I'm saying. There was actually because Porco Rosso was at the time was that popular. There was always like kind of some murmurings of.
I will say, like out of all the Miyazaki movies, it is one of the few that would probably lend itself to a continuation. Now, it'd be a shame to take away that slightly ambiguous ending, but with him being like, I feel like the actual like premise of the movie does kind of lend itself to further adventures.
Yeah, the speculated, like, at least whatever the first draft would have been, like the speculated plot was going to be he was going to be in like the Spanish Civil War at the time, which would have been like still like mid-30s, I think. Again, all this before World War II, mind you, because Porco was a World War I pilot.
Right.
Which, by the way, I think just in my head, I think deep down, I have like a Snoopy Connect in my kid brain, just like he's the World War in Flying Aces, but as a pig. But yeah, so the idea like Porco would have been he would have been back in the saddle, but in more of a kind of a weathered context, perhaps.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that's it. That's all she wrote.
All right. Well, just final thoughts. I honestly don't think this is in like my top of the like cream of the crop anymore, but it's certainly the entry point for me, and I certainly like really respect it a lot. And I don't know. I still think out of all the Miyazaki movies, this one might be the most unique because I feel like Miyazaki movies are usually either very whimsical or very serious. And this is a nice little mixture of the two. I feel like this is like the perfect kind of like middle point in that Venn diagram of his different tones. And I really like it for that.
Yeah, I at the end of the day, again, I owe a lot to Porco Rosso. There's just a lot of fond feelings there. I still think there's a lot of artistry there. It still holds up. Again, I only have one quibble, which I already mentioned, but so that's yes, Miyazaki keeps raising the bar with all these films. It keeps dazzling us, but there's something to be said for simplicity, man, and there's something to be said for the underdog, or the underpig in this case.
Mm-hmm.
And I just can't help but love it and just go back to it and kind of fall in love with it again. I think there's just something really, I don't know, there's just something really unique and personal about this. Mind you, we're going to get to like The Wind Rises at some point. That's also going to be something really special and really whimsical that really cuts to the core of who Miyazaki is. And then I haven't even seen Boy in the Harem, but we're going to, I'm sure that's going to be a lot there too. But I don't know. It's just Porco Rosso. It's like you got to dance with the one that brung you sometimes. It's Porco Rosso.
Well said.
You got to stand by the pig.
All right, folks. It's time to board our flying machine and take off. But don't worry. We'll return to spirit you away to the world of Miyazaki.
It's one mighty cute pig.
That'll do, pig.